Ngayon ay 25 of February ng 2026 sa ating, kasalukuyang taon ng ating pag-record nitong episode na ito. And this is a very important, commemoration para sa Republika ng Pilipinas, ano. Kaya balikan natin yung kasaysayan ng EDSA, People Power, na karamihan sa atin ay hindi pa tayo pinapanganak nung panahong ito. So ano nga ba, totoo ba siyang nag-exist? Siya ba ay gawa-gawa lang ng mga makakaliwang grupo? Siya ba ay dahil lang sa isang pamilya o labanan lang 'to ng mga pamilya? Ito ba ay hindi naman talaga ano, purely political lang ba ito o ito ay may religious elements din 'no? So today, we will be discussing the history of the EDSA People Power Revolution in a narrative style, and then later on we will be reflecting on its legacy, on its history, no? So wag na po natin patagalin pa. Ako po si Lennon
At ako naman si Russell,
at ito ang Tamang Usapan.
usapang may tama.
Kauna-unahan sa Pilipinas.
Noong Pebrero ng 1986, sa kahabaan ng isang highway sa Metro Manila, may naganap na eksena na parang hindi ka panipaniwala, 'no. May mga madre na nakaluhod sa harap ng mga tangke de giyera. Napaka-famous nung picture na yon habang sila'y nagrorosaryo. Mga ordinaryong tao na nagbibigay ng pagkain sa mga sundalo, mga bulaklak. At siyempre isang diktador na almost 20 years nang nakaupo bilang pangulo, bilang prime minister din, no? But at that time, nakikita niya ng unti-unting bumabagsak yung kanyang regimen.
Ito ang EDSA People Power Revolution. Walang baril na nagpapaputok sa mga tao, walang civil war. Pero may tensyon, may takot, at may totoong posibilidad na dumanak ang dugo, maging bayolente ang mga nagtutunggaling grupo.
Kaya in this episode, balikan natin, no, yung buong narrative ng people power as it is now known. Mula sa pag-akyat ng yumaong Pangulong Ferdinand Marcos Sr. sa kapangyarihan hanggang sa 4 na araw na yumanig sa mundo, literally.
At gaya ng lagi, sinisikap natin dito sa Tamang Usapan, sumasangguni tayo strictly sa historical records. So hangga't maaari, hopefully sa aming mga nakalap na datos, walang kuro-kuro, walang sabi-sabi, walang kwentong kutsero o romantic na exaggerations. Pero hindi rin tamang tanggalin yung drama kasi yun nga yung nagpapa-EDSA sa EDSA. Meron siyang drama talaga at, ito talaga mismo yung isang highlight sa mahalagang yugto sa kasaysayan ng Republika ng Pilipinas.
Para maintindihan natin yung phenomenon na tinatawag natin yung EDSA o yung properly ay EDSA People Power Revolution. Kailangan muna natin balikan yung simula, no? Paano nagkaroon ng martial law? Paanong umakyat sa poder si Ferdinand Marcos Sr.? Si Ferdinand Marcos Sr. ay naiboto na elect na Pangulo ng Republika ng Pilipinas noong 1965, no? Siya ay sinundan niya si Pangulong Macapagal, no? Initially, he was well liked actually sa publiko. Kasi nga, well, mayroon ngang public spot yan sila ni President Macapagal kasi parang may pangako na Noon kasi pwede pang tumakbo ulit ang ano, ang presidente para tayong US 'no, every 4 years ang elections tapos puwedeng tumakbo ulit. So may pangako si Pangulong Macapagal na, "Okey sige sa'yo na hindi na ako tatakbo ulit." Pero hindi niya tinuloy. So si President Marcos or by then ay Senate President pa lang siya, prinesent niya yung sarili niya sa publiko na, "Teka, nag-post-war construction pa lang tayo, tinatapos pa natin. Ako ay isang technocratic reformer." 'No? So hindi ako traditional na politician kumbaga. Kaya he was actually well liked, especially nung kanyang first term nung 1965.
Oo, totoo 'yan 'no, para siya naging champion ng masa. May kuwento sa akin yung, isang matandang pare na passionist 'no, na isa kasi sa mga sumira daw kuno, bawal nga pala yung myth 'no, pero eto ikuwan niya, account niya ito. Ang isang slogan daw against Diosdado Macapagal, "Wag tayo kay Macapagal kasi makamahal." So dahil nga kay Macapagal nagkaroon daw ng nag-spike yung inflation kaya isa daw yon sa mga ikinatalo niya. And makamasa ang datingan ni Ferdinand Marcos Sr. at, maraming mga lumabas at nagsulputang kuwento tungkol sa kanya at, yun ang nagpalakas din ng kanyang image. So, from 1965, pinadama ni former President Marcos Sr. yung, kanyang layunin 'no, para sa Pilipinas. However, isang importanteng yugto ay yung taong 1972 'no, dahil di umano sa patuloy na banta ng communist insurgency, yung paglawak ng, impluwensya ng komunismo. During that time kasi, yung communism malakas siyang political force 'no. It really influenced Europe, it influenced East Asia, it influenced, countries and regions across the world. So, naging growing geopolitical threat siya. So, dahil dito, citing this particular threat posed by communist insurgency, the then president declared martial rule noong September 21.
The proclamation of martial law is not a military takeover. I, as your duly elected president of the republic, use this power which may be implemented by the military authorities, but still is a power embodied in the Constitution to protect the Republic of the Philippines and our democracy.
Nakatala naman sa kasaysayan natin ang nangyari dito. Pero isa dito ay yung pagpapahintulot in a way, no, dahil sa martial law, nagkaroon ng full power ang pangulo, no, para actually na-revisa nga yung yung constitution, yung kongreso, yung legislative powers, di ba? So napunta yun sa pangulo. Kaya nga lang din, dahil nga lang din sa martial law o martial rule, yung mga kumbaga political opponents ng administrasyon napatahimik din, tulad ng ABS-CBN during the time. Tapos nandun din yung mga kaso na tinatawag na desaparecidos. So karoon ng media shutdown at lahat ng kapangyarihang politikal, no, yung isang term din doon na tinatawag na police power, not necessarily yung maging police, no, na katulad ng nasa lansangan, no, but yung police power, the authority of the government to implement or enforce the law ay napunta sa iisang branch lang o sa iisang tao actually, no, sa Pangulo.
And to be fair, ito ay nasa konteksto ng Cold War. Mayroong certain competition. Cold War siya kasi wala naman talagang direct na confrontation between what is essentially a US-dominated free world, quote-unquote, no? Na more on democratic countries and capitalistic countries against the Soviet bloc or the communist world, no? Especially sa Asia. That time, well, after ng Second World War, ang China supposedly ay isa sa pinakamalalaking demokrasya sa Asia, no? Ang Republic of China. Pero nagapi sila ng mga communists. So they had to go to Taiwan. And then China now is now a communist country. Napakalaki nun. And then you have the Korean War. We know na meron yun. Hanggang ngayon, technically, nasa gera pa rin ang North Korea at ang South Korea. And then you have Vietnam War. So, mayroong kaba, mayroon talagang kaba na nananalaytay noon na the communists are taking over. And the communists are worse than the fascists, kumbaga. So, yun yung ginamit na justification ni President Marcos Sr. para sa kanyang pagtawag ng martial law na kanyang dineclare noong September 21, although ito ay inihayag lang in public noong September 23, 1972, no? And remember, as I've said before, noong 1965 yun ang una niyang term. Ito ay second term na niya. Kaya rin may mga nag-argue na maybe tinawag lang niya yung martial law para hindi siya abutan ng term limit, no? Well, that is up for debate. Pero by this time, he declared it swiftly, no? Habang mayroon ng chismis na lumabas na pwedeng magkaroon ng martial law. And then the Senate was actually convening at pinag-uusapan itong posibilidad na to. But still, all were caught in surprise, no? Hinuli yung mga kalaban, political opponents ng administrasyon, yung mga elites din na kalaban ng administrasyon, no? And to be clear, for 14 years, the Philippines was effectively under authoritarian rule. But when we say martial rule o martial law, ang nasa isip natin, 'di ba, parang laging so si President Marcos lang tapos puro lang mga militar, no? No. Actually, after niya ng declaration ng martial law, no, he went on to revise the constitution, yung tinatawag na bagong lipunan, 'di ba? Bagong lipunan, binago yung porma ng gobyerno. Nagkaroon tayo ng prime ministers, nagkaroon tayo ng assembly, 'di ba, ng batasang pambansa. So wala na yung Kongreso at yung Senado, no? So gumawa na lang siya ng
Assemblyman,
iisang
yung ano,
assemblymen ang tawag, yeah. Assemblymen rather, no? So binago niya. So hindi siya yung technically siya lang. Merong mga may prime minister siya, may mga assemblymen. Pero in reality, all power still resides in his person, no? On the person of the former President Marcos Sr., no? This allowed him to rule by decree. Kaya nga hanggang ngayon, if you are studying law, marami pa rin mga presidential decrees na galing pa noong 1970s era na hanggang ngayon ay relevant pa rin, no? So, it allowed him to rule by decree, to arrest opponents as we have seen, to shut down, no, yung mga critics. And well, it is true na talagang nagkaroon ng quote-unquote safety dahil nga naman mas effective kumbaga yung policing. But it also caused what we now call as crony capitalism, no? It means dahil tinanggal mo yung mga makakapangyarihang tao, mga mayayaman na hindi sang-ayon sa'yo, so they exile themselves sa US and to other countries. Kailangan mo ngayon na magpupuno doon sa mga companies na nawalan ng may-ari, kumbaga. Diyan pumasok yung mga crony. Pag sabi mo crony, yun ay parang friends. So hindi sila competent, pero ilalagay mo sila dahil kaibigan mo sila. Di ba? Kuwari, ako ang presidente o ako ang obispo, tapos i-assign ko si Russell na canon lawyer kumbaga ng diocese, pero hindi naman siya competent, pero dahil kaibigan ko lang siya. That's crony capitalism. And of course, lumabas din yung mga issues nga ng human rights abuses, no? Yung mga, one of the most famous ones ay yung the Trajano case, no? One of the students na question niya in a public forum ang, well, dalagita pa noon na si Amy Marcos, dahil siya ay tumatakbo as, I think, governor or representative ng province of Manila. Question na ba, kailangan ba talaga na anak ng pangulo ang mahalal? And then later he was kidnapped, tortured, and killed, no? So we have that. And also after the martial law, after the martial rule, we also found out that we have accumulated a massive foreign debt, no? So these things marked this period, no? The 70s in the Philippines.
Still, we acknowledge yung during the regime of then President Marcos, nagkaroon nga rin naman talaga ng boom sa infrastructure, sa agriculture, pero isa rin sa hindi madi-deny, yun nga, nalubog din tayo sa utang. Samantalang we used to be somewhat called as a rising tiger in Asia, hindi matatawaran pa rin yung naging masamang effect nung crony na sistema wherein select few only benefited so much from the funds, no, ng gobyerno, kaban ng bayan. And sabi nila, technically or by paper, I'm not really sure, just correct me dun sa mga mas may kabisado, totoo naman yun na ang martial law in effect ay hanggang 85, 86, no? Kasi nga hanggat naroon hanggang present yung administrasyon ng dating Pangulong Marcos. Pero technically daw, nilift niya yung martial law ng 1981 sa kadahilan ng darating ang Santo Papa sa Pilipinas para ipakiusap din mismo yung pag-usapan yung mga reports ka ng human rights violations, no, allegedly during the time. Pero yun nga, by the early 1980s, ito na, nakikita na ng karamihan, no? At palabas na ng palabas yung mga tinatawag na lamat ng governance ng dating Pangulo. Kasi obviously, nakikita nila na medyo lumulubog yung ekonomiya ng bansa. At may mga mangilang-ilang tao ang nanatili na nagpapahayag ng kanilang mga saloobin laban sa ganitong sistema. Isa dito ay yung nasirang senador, dating senador na si Benigno Ninoy Aquino Jr. Patuloy siya sa pagiging membro kumbaga ng opposition. Sa kabilang banda, sa simbahan din, marami ring mga kaso ng mga pari na nawala. Mostly mga religious, no? Sa Congregation of the Most Holy Redeemer, meron akong kilalang isa na nakulong during that time, si Father Pix Picardal, sumalangit nawa. Tapos yung kapatid nung dati naming provincial, nung nasa Passionista ko, hindi, nawala din yun during time ng martial. Tapos nagkaroon ako ng professor na nakulong din. Kaya makakulong si Father Benjamin Alforque. So they really have first-hand experience of what had been, no, what had transpired during those times. It really also shaped, no, mamaya mas pag-uusapan natin yun, how the Philippines as a church, no, the Philippine church, it really also shaped, no, yung not only yung kanyang self-perception, how she understands herself, no? Yung pagiging situated niya sa society, sa Philippine society, but rather yung spirituality niya. Mamaya, mas mapag-uusapan natin. Anyway, let's go back muna to Ninoy Aquino. Nayanig ang lahat kasi somehow, quote and quote, just for the sake of argument, tolerable. Naging tolerable sa general masses. sa buong masa, 'no. Although ang dami ng mga outrages, mga reports, mga rallies or whatsoever, quote and quote, nato-tolerate pa ng masa yung nangyayari sa lipunan. Until 1983, August 21, kung saan si Ninoy Aquino ay binaril, no, sa pagbaba niya sa eroplano. Galing siya sa United States, no. At ito yung somehow nag-ignite, no, ng mas pinalakas at united na opposition against the Marcos administration. So it hindi lang nito ginulantang o ginimbal o ginulo yung status quo. Talagang nag-cause siya ng mobilization, ng movement.
Actually, that's quite important to note. Kasi bakit din walang effective na opposition by that time, no? And maybe by this time din. Well, hindi lang dahil sa may martial law or naka-exile yung mga opposition figures. Rather, kasi watak-watak din yung opposition. You have democratic opposition, no? Mga traditional political parties opposing the regime. You have the communists, na totoo naman na nandun talaga sila. They want to wreak havoc to the country and put forth their own violent regime. So, and then you have other factions na gustong mapangibabawan yung opposition. So, watak-watak sila, but this assassination right on the tarmac of Manila International Airport in front of cameras, no, was actually a turning point. Ito talaga yung nag-galvanize na nagkaroon ng rallying point, kumbaga, itong magkakaibang mga factions ng oppositions, no? Well, at least a majority of them, because yung mga iba, yung mga radicals like yung mga communists, they will still not join. They might either, well, they would love to hijack it, pero at least yung majority ng mga opposition, they congregated after this, no? And especially nung funeral procession ni Senator Aquino, no? It was a quiet but powerful protest. Millions attended the procession ng nasirang senador.
2 years later, 1985, na-pressure na, no? Dahil sa pressure sa administrasyon, may tapik na din mula sa mga international na partners tulad ng United States, no? Estados Unidos. So napilitan ng dating Pangulo. Hindi ko alam kung napilitan ba siya whatsoever. Pero pinasya ng dating Pangulo na magpatawag ng tinatawag na snap elections, no? Para sa February 7, 1986.
Yeah, at ang kumandidato para sa oposisyon, no, ang humarap sa dating Pangulong Marcos ay yung biyuda ng nasirang Senador Aquino na si Corazon Cory Aquino, no. So it was a contest between, well, a politician, an entrenched strongman, ang image niya
Yeah.
for more than 20 years as the father of the nation, di ba? And a reluctant, kasi, well, hindi siya politiko si Cory Aquino. She was never in politics before running for president, no, but still she was a symbolic figure na nag-unite dito sa opposition, no, a symbolic figure of this democratic opposition.
Totoo din naman, kaya nga dilaw di ba? May connotation yung color na yellow during the time. And totoo din, we cannot deny na despite everything being said against or for Marcos Sr., isa siyang statesman. Statesman talaga siya. Traditional na politician talaga siya na matuturing, no? Strongman, kumbaga. So what happened? Nagpatawag, nangyari nga yung snap election. Nagkaroon ng iba't ibang mga electoral watchdogs na tinatawag tulad ng NAMFREL. Hindi, nakalimutan ko na yun National Movement for Free and Responsible Elections, di ko sure. So yun. PPCRB din yata, meron na yata noon. Pero NAMFREL, yan yung ano, yan yung kumbaga independent na poll watcher nung time na yun. Then you have foreign monitors, tapos yung mga international rapporteurs, diba? So, some parts of the whole world, no? Not really all. Pero halos buong mundo nakatutok ngayon sa Pilipinas. Kaya panood nila kung ano magaganap kasi pivotal eh. Dahil nga ano, sensational. Kumbaga yung nangyari, especially dun sa assassination ni Ninoy, mas na-romanticize pa nga nung ibang mga na-exaggerate nung iba. Kaya tutok talaga ang buong mundo. So what happened? Nagkaroon ng report ng massive fraud, pandaraya, manipulation, no, sa eleksyon. So the official COMELEC count sa COMELEC noon, ang nanalo ay si Marcos. Pero sa parallel counts, ang panalo ay si Cory. So karoon ng issue. So instead na maging saligan supposedly yung snap elections, pinagdudahan ng resulta nito.
And the tipping point was actually nung February 9, 1986, no? A group of computer technicians ng COMELEC ay nag-walk out, no, from their job sa tabulation center ng presidential election because they claimed that there are anomalies in the election results, no? Sa election results na nire-report sa public. And this image was so powerful, it became iconic, no? Yung image ng mga technicians walking out on live television.
Dahil nga, yun nga ito yung ano kumbaga turning point ng panahong yun. So, eventually, nagkakaroon na ng from cracks, tuluyan nang nagdi-disintegrate yung walls, no, yung image, no, na strong and stable yung administrasyon. And isa dito sa mga naging direct na resulta ay yung pagtalikod ng mga key figures, key officials sa cabinet ng dating presidente. So let's fast forward from the snap elections, punta tayo sa ito na, yung EDSA na tinatawag, no? EDSA did not start ng February 25. Nag-start talaga siya ng February 22. February 22, 1986. Dati kasi ministers pa yung tawag, hindi pa secretaries, no? Ministry of Defense, Ministry of Health, Ministry of Public Works. So, yung dating Minister ng Defense ay walang iba kundi si Manong Johnny Enrile, si Juan Ponce Enrile. Tapos, ang Vice Chief of Staff ng Armed Forces of the Philippines ay ang naging Pangulong Fidel Ramos. So, sila ay, strong men during that time din. Kasi nga, ang AFP chief nun ay si General Fabian Ber, di ba? At yun ay solid talagang loyal kay Presidente Marcos. So, sa pagtalikod, no, o pagbaliktad, yun yung sa other term would suggest, yung pagbaliktad ni Enrile at ni Ramos, as they withdrew the support, tumalikod sila, lumayo sila, nagpunta sila sa kampo, no, ng militar at ng pulis sa Quezon City, Campaginaldo, sa Campo Crame.
And this was actually very nakakakaba at nakakatakot, no? Because yun nga, even though they are the defense minister and chief of staff, silang dalawa ng military, it does not mean that they have total control of the armed forces, no? And this is in the context actually na sinasabi rin ng mga historians na by this time, kaya rin nagsimula yung cracks ng 1980s na sinabi kanina ni Russell. Because by this time, the president, no, President Marcos Sr. was already old, and he was already having sickness, no. So now the crisis actually a succession crisis. Yun ang no. So you have factions even within the administration, no, who will succeed him. So although we will not make claims here, some historians would say na it is actually a factional na gamble kumbaga ng faction ni Enrile at ni Ramos para before mag-slip away, no, maging successors ng Pangulo at hindi mapunta sa faction nila General Ver at ng First Lady, no. So that is a claim by historians, no. So there is that tension kasi nga they do not control really the whole military apparatus of the Philippines by then. So they are fearing arrest actually. That's why they barricaded themselves dun sa sa kampo, no. Because meron mga nangyari, no. There were earlier coups, no, attempt in a coup d'etat na nag-fail, no. So this is actually sort of a last gamble, no?
Yeah, and kailangan maintindihan din natin, katulad sa nangyayari sa panahon natin, not only sa administrasyon ngayon, pero mas nung panahon ng previous administration. Habang papalapit yung period ng February 22, intensified na rin yung growing na yung suspicion, no, against any form ng destabilization. Kaya nga yan, yung nag-fail na coup, halimbawa. And you will also hear, no, or read in the newspaper o sa mga balita, sa history, no, yung failed assassination attempt kay Enrile. Na may mga nagsasabi na si Enrile daw may pakana din noon. May mga ganong kwento. Pero ang point noon, suspicious na ang administrasyon. So, hanggat kaya, mga sawata, ika-crackdown yung mga nagluluto ng destab. So, ito yung overarching na feeling, So, when nag-barricade, no, nagtago si Enrile at saka si Ramos, this was the time na nag-intervene naman ng simbahan. If you will remember, the late, no, Jaime Cardinal Sin, no, who was then Archbishop of Manila. So, dahil ang Radio Veritas noon, hanggang ngayon naman, yun ang official na radio station ng Simbahang Katolika, Pilipinas, no? Radio Veritas. Dahil nga may media shutdown, nagkataon merong isang lugar kung saan may mga transmitter pa rin na hindi nasa wata o na-sequester, no, ng militar. So doon, nagpatawag ang yumaong Cardinal Sin na let's go to EDSA to pray and to show support to our friends Minister Enrile and General Ramos. So, because of that message of Cardinal Sin, people, no, began to little by little gather around Campo Crame kasi and Campo Aguinaldo. So, yan ay along Highway 54. Now, tinatawag nating Epifanio de los Santos Avenue o EDSA. Kaya yan sila. And nung nagpunta sila doon, as one of the recollections of Monsignor Gerardo Santos. So there are priests there, no? And their roles was to celebrate Mass. Then the sisters are there guiding the people, leading the rosary. No? From time to time may talks, no, to remind the people of the conscience of the country. And whenever they have extras, no, tulad nun yung isang ginawa nga daw, pinagawa sa kanya kasi he was a very young priest during the time, no? And available yung video, you can watch it on YouTube, courtesy of EDSA Shrine. So nandun yung testimony ni Monsignor Santos. So, may time din na yung mga church people like the priests, so ang ginagawa nila, nagdadala din sila ng pagkain sa mga sundalong nakabarikada na pro-administration, no? Na kumbaga ready to take action kapag inutusan. Yun yung ito na. Nagsimula nung February 22, then 23, yan, 24, yan. Ito yung mga ito yung eksena sa mga araw na to.
I wish you to pray and proceed to EDSA. Our two friends, Mr. Enrile and General Ramos, are in danger together with 250 soldiers. Please go to EDSA and form a human barricade.
So as you can see, it was not really a planned event. This became a crucial turning point. Hindi dahil planado yung revolution ng isang madugo at bayolenteng revolusyon ng mamamayang manggagawa. Hindi. It was actually a call by the Archbishop of Manila to stop o prevent bloodshed. You go to EDSA, you protect them, not because we are with them, with their cause, not because we have a political party. Hindi. Punta kayo ng EDSA kasi para wala lang dumanak na dugo. No? And that is why you see the religious nature of EDSA. Later on, we will discuss it more. Pero, yun nga, dapat banggitin Russell, may mga misa, nagdadasal sila ng rosaryo, nagre-regalo sila ng rosaryo sa mga sundalong nakapaligid sa kanila. It was a very religious event. It became a revolution because it was not planned. It is actually the civilian population, yung mga tao mismo, they made it one.
Yeah, it was actually more of a response than hindi siya concoction, hindi siya contrary sa mga lumalabas ngayon na naratibo na ito ay pakanalang ng isang pamilya tulad ng pamilya Aquino. O kaya merong kinikilingan si Cardinal Sin. If you will observe Cardinal Sin, the way he poses, very regal na cardinal si Cardinal Sin. And basically wala pang dioceses yung NCR noon. So isang buong Archdiocese of Manila. So talagang para siyang Emperor of Manila. So hindi niya kailangan ng political party para mag-influence. So it was actually a response of a church that listens, of a church that discerns and suffers with the people. That's why kahit 28, 'di ba? 20 seconds short lang 20 seconds long lang yung message niya. It really resounded throughout the whole country. And dahan-dahang nagpunta ang mga tao at napuno yung EDSA dahil doon. So, let's go now to the 4 days of EDSA. Sige, Padre.
So after that call, that broadcasted call of the good cardinal sa Radio Veritas, people started coming dun sa EDSA, sa kahabaan ng EDSA. Thousands, then hundreds of thousands gathered along the avenue. Families, priests, nuns, students, workers, lahat ng uri ng tao. May mayayaman, may mahihirap, may mga middle class, And in fact, hindi lang sa EDSA. Meron din mga centers, pare sa Iloilo, sa Cebu, sa Davao, sa mga centers in the whole of the Philippines. Of course, sa EDSA ang may pinakamarami dahil nga doon ang tinawag ni Cardinal Sin na meeting point kumbaga para hindi dumanak ang dugo, And in fact, this was a very first religious event dahil nga lagi may misa, may mga prayers, and also in a way a joyful event, we can say, People are singing, In fact, after ng EDSA, later on makikita natin, pag-uusapan natin, di ba? Meron pang si Cardinal Sinong No Mas Amor kay El Tuyo. People were singing. Vendors are there to sell food. no? So it was like a big gathering of the people, no? Spontaneous. Also, yeah, it was called by the good cardinal, but also it was very spontaneous.
Yeah,
Yung
yeah,
mga
yeah.
tao, they went there. Wala
That's
pang ano
true.
nito,
It's true.
imagine, wala pang social media nito. So, hindi katulad ngayon mag-post ka, 'di ba? Ang dali makakapag-ipon ka ng tao, pero wala pang social media nito. And in
Tsaka walang bayad-bayad
society,
dito.
walang
Walang
bayad-bayad.
binayaran.
Ngayon
Walang
na
wal
very controlled ng gobyerno ang communications. This is really a miracle.
yeah. And these were tense moments. Because, of course, gaya nga ng kwento ko, even before the 22nd of February, paranoid na yung iba, no? Sa administration side, no? And there were actual responses, no? They were beginning to deploy troops and tanks, no? Advancing, helicopters hovering around to measure, to see, no, yung actual growing numbers ng tao, no? And yun nga yung rumors na magkakaroon nga ng mga crackdowns at magiging violente nga yung mga mangyayari. Some were ordered to fire at people, but these soldiers refused to obey, no, these orders to fire against the innocent civilians simply gathered, no, peacefully.
Some accounts actually even tell na accounts sa mga sundalo that at the midst of that people, no, they can see a woman, big woman, na under niya yung mantle. Under ng mantle niya yung mga tao. That is why they turn back, they don't want to shoot, no. Accounts, personal accounts ng ilang mga sundalo, no. And we believe that to be the Blessed Virgin Mary. That is why at the Edsa Shrine, kung makikita ninyo, isang malaking statue ng Mahal na Birhen, di ba? Kasi yun yung patotoo na sinabi nitong mga sundalo natin, na yun ang nakita nila ang Mahal na Birhen, no? And that was days 1 and 2, no? The first 2 days. On the 24th of February, the third day, no, it now became an international news. No? The international media, may nakita nila, ang daming nag-gather sa EDSA. So it might be really a really big thing, no? Na hindi lang siya katulad ng mga nakaraang mga rallies na napupunta lang sa wala. So they went there, they broadcasted scenes of these peaceful protesters. Now, hindi exaggeration yung term na peaceful. Kasi nowadays it's very abused, no? Peaceful protesting daw, pero sinisira nila yung kahabaan na halimbawa ng Mendiola. O peaceful protesting daw, pero meron din silang mga sinusunog na mga effigies, o meron silang nag-iingay sila. Hindi ganun ang people sa EDSA. They were praying, literally praying. No, they were celebrating the mass. So it is literal na peaceful ang protest, no? So these peaceful protesters are confronting armored vehicles. Just imagine that, kung ikaw ay journalist ka, galing ka ng Europa, galing ka ng US, makuha mo yung picture na yon. Wow, napaka may evoke mo dun na image, no? So now comes the global narrative, no, na international media called it as a people power, quote unquote, no. It was now born at this very time.
And dahil nga nag-gain siya ng traction sa media, the international arena, the United States being one of the strongest ally and supporter, no, ng administration, they began signaling withdrawal of support, no, na parang they actually confronted the former president. Step down, no, we can assist you. Kaya nga siya, 'di ba, nilipat siya sa Hawaii. Wag mo nang ipilit at wag mo nang palalain. So because of that, no, nagkaroon ng nag-pave way na rin ito, yung pag-withdraw ng support ng US doon sa tinatawag na smooth na transition ng power. So, na Marcos was fled, dinala sa Hawaii, then umupo na presidente si Corazon Aquino.
Raise your right hand and repeat after me your oath of office. I, Corazon Cojuangco Aquino,
Corazon Cojuangco Aquino,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully
that I will faithfully
and conscientiously
and conscientiously
fulfill my duty
fulfill my duties
as President of the Philippines,
as President of the Philippines,
preserve and defend its fundamental law,
preserve and defend its fundamental law,
execute its just law,
execute its just law,
do justice to every man,
do justice to every man,
and consecrate myself
and consecrate myself
to the service of the nation.
to the service of the nation.
So help me God.
So help me God.
February 25, 1986, Cory Aquino was inaugurated president. But at the same time, sa Malacanang, President Marcos was also inaugurated as president kasi nga officially para sa COMELEC ang nanalo sa election ay si President Marcos Sr. No? So in Malacanang, he went and did his inauguration, and then sa EDSA, Cory was also inaugurated. No? That is February 25, 1986. However, by the evening of that very same day, si President Marcos Sr. at yung kanyang family ay they went and were flown out of the Philippines, of Malacanang, to Hawaii. No? The US mediated para magkaroon ng maayos na transition of power. And also, in a way, to save face din sa dating Pangulo that they were escorted there. Because of course, if it continues, peaceful yung mga nasa EDSA, but you still have the violent elements. No, you have the communists, for example, that they would really love to hijack that. So may pangamba rin para sa buhay ni President Marcos Sr. at ng kanyang pamilya. And the United States, well, they mediated diplomatically, and so the Marcos family went to exile sa Hawaii.
Imagine 20 years of the rule of the Marcos family, no? Basically, no? The Marcos administration. And yet it did not end with a single gunshot, but rather with a plane taking off into the night. Talk about unceremonious na na removal. So yeah, that's it. Pero Father, please elaborate before we proceed with ito na rin pala yung ating segment 5, no. Pero paki-highlight nga, pakiulit na meron bang papel yung Communist Party o Communist Movement sa EDSA, as some claims or mga nagsasabing naratibo na pakana ito ng mga makakaliwang grupo?
No, they don't have. No, first and foremost, the communists really hate the church. Okay, they would like to infiltrate. Di ko naman may tatanggi na may ilang mga ecclesiastical places na maybe they would like to invade, to infiltrate, to influence at least, no. But they really hate. This is ideological. No? Since the birth of communism, kay Karl Marx pa lang, sabi niya, religion is the opium of the people. Pagdating mo kay Lenin, kay Stalin, ang una nilang systematic na tinatarget mga simbahan. And then you have Mao Zedong of China, na actually the communists of the Philippines are more in line with Maoist communism, no, idea of communism. They really hate the church, no, and even the church, especially by that time, is very anti-communist. No, you have the condemnations starting from the father of Catholic social doctrine, no? Pope Leo the 13th. Panahon pa ni Pope Leo the 13th, malinaw na, you cannot be a communist and a Catholic at the same time, no? Actually, communism is almost katumbas ng Freemasonry. So automatic excommunication 'yon. So there is that sense, no? Kaya hindi pwede na sabihin na mga communist ang may plano ng EDSA. Why? Remember, it was Cardinal Sin who called people to gather there so that walang dumanak na dugo. No? Hindi para magpalit ng gobyerno, hindi para ikampanya yung ganitong politiko. Hindi, para wala lang dumanak na dugo. Of course, hindi natin pwedeng matatanggi na, syempre, well, people from the left, from the communist blocs, have seen this gathering of people. Of course, there is the temptation na, maybe it is now our time. Let us use this as our time para i-hijack, no? No proper other terms para i-hijack yung nangyayari ngayon kasi hindi naman talaga organized spontaneous yung pagpunta doon ng mga tao. Why not we hijack? Remember, the Communist Manifesto is simple, no? Dahil mayroong class struggle, you have to resist that. You have to have a violent, remember that, violent revolution. Hindi sila sa peaceful ends. Violent revolution sila. So, in fact, ito, may mga nagsabi sa akin, mga pari rin yun, may mga nagsabi sa akin. Sabi ko kasi bakit Father yung mga pictures lang ng mga nagro-rosaryo yung mga madre. Yung mga madre kasi, especially yung dalawang madre, yung picture na sikat, no?
Mga daughters of Saint Paul kasi yun, mga ate
Yeah,
ni Lennon.
sila.
Yeah,
Anyways,
nasan ba yung mga pare?
yung mga pare, tinanong ko sila, ba't wala sila dun sa picture? Ba't hindi sila nagro-rosaryo? And hindi, at that time na kinuhanan ng picture na yan, may mga tumawag sa amin. Tapos dinala kami sa isang sulok. Tapos tinuturuan kaming gumawa ng Molotov bomb. Those were the communists. No, they wanted to hijack the event na magkaroon na ngayon ng violence. Kasi once na may mambato halimbawa ng bomba sa mga tangke de guerra, magre-react ang society. Yeah. And then, all hell will break loose. And in fact, that is, in a way, nagkaroon, no? Pero hindi na EDSA Remember when we said na the US mediated para diplomatically i-exile sa Hawaii ang Marcos family. Nung nawala na kumbaga ng residents ang Malacanang, there were people who rushed there. Niloot nila, oo.
Niloot nila.
Ninakapan na nandun, kung ano, free for all. Those were not the people in EDSA. Ang layo ng EDSA, mga kaibigan. Ang EDSA, nasan yan? Nasa may bandang Quezon City yan Asan ang Malacanang? Nasa Manila yan. Sa may Mendiola, di ba? So, may mga nakahandang mga tao na doon, ibig sabihin, para mag-loot. And doon natin makikita anong pinagkaiba. No? Again, EDSA, even though they claim it to be theirs, hindi pwede yang mapunta sa mga communists. Wala sila dyan. Ayaw nila dyan. Kasi religious event yun
Pero yun nga now that we're talking about what really happened, in a bird's eye view, no? What really happened in EDSA, the best term talaga na magagamit natin, both secular and religious in a sense, no, is a miracle. The miracle na nagkaroon ng peaceful transition of power, nagkaroon ng mass mobilization na hindi na rooted sa prayer at na kahit hindi lang siya side ng tao versus the administration Even the tao versus the communists. Hindi siya na-hijack ng mga komunista, no? O ng mga mapagsamantalang grupo. And it's really a miracle, no? Talagang intervention mula sa taas, no? Pero Father, ano ba yung other ways how we can describe the EDSA phenomenon?
EDSA is often is often romanticized, no? Na parang well, nasabi rin natin kanina purely spontaneous o baka naman very unified na peaceful uprising 'no. Pero actually it's more complex than that, eh. Kasi nga hindi ito yung kumbaga end all and be all, eh, na parang, nagkaroon ng EDSA, then after umalis yung mga Marcos and then and they live happily ever after 'no. No, of course, we have the post-EDSA period na we still live in na naging cause din kung bakit nagkaroon ng so much distrust sa people power 'no, sa history na kaya rin gusto natin gawin 'tong episode na 'to, eh, kasi many people especially our age 'no, kami Russell pinanganak kami post-EDSA na kami. So, especially yung mga pinanganak ng 2000s 'no. So, wala na tayo talaga, disconnected na tayo dun sa ano, sa history. We were not there. And people, sadly, who were there, some of them have even forgotten why they were there. Oh, now you see people na baliktad na yung kanilang sinasabi, no? Pero the truth is much more complex than that, no? EDSA, tama ka pre. Gusto ko yung ano mo. It's actually really a miracle. In all accounts, it should have not happened. And
Yeah,
if it
yeah.
happened, it is doomed to fail. Magfe-fail 'yun. Una, hindi siya organized, walang oo, nagtawag si Cardinal Sin, pero hindi siya yung nandoon as a leader kumbaga, hindi. Walang organization. Pangalawa, you have that people who wanted to hijack it to become a violent revolution. They could they could have done that easily. Meron kang milyon-milyong tao na sa iisang lugar, magpasabog ka lang ng bomba. 'No? May isa lang naman bato ng Molotov sa isang tangke de guerra and then all hell will break loose. But it did not happen. It was a political movement. But in its heart, it is not. It is a religious movement, a religious event. No? So, it's actually a religious experience for many people there in EDSA. So, it was really a miracle. A revolution that was not meant to happen.
And what constitutes this miracle? Hindi siya yung mystical na out of the up in the clouds, no? Or something na you will see in the movies whatsoever, no? But rather, you can see yung isang napakalinis na pagkakatahi, no? Ng elite defections, for example. The defections of key officials in the Marcos cabinet. Military calculations na kahit anong naging preventive measure or active defense, for example, ng militar, walang nasagasaan ng tangke. Walang walang bumagsak na bomba o walang tumamang bala mula man sa side ng mga gusto mang-hijack o dun sa mga ginagawa lang din nila yung trabaho nila during the time, no? And you also have here international eyes looking at the Philippines, so you have the international pressure and the very mobilization of the people. Tama ka dun, eh, gusto ko i-highlight yun. What makes it a miracle, no? What constitutes this as a miracle is its spontaneity, no? Imagine yung paghawak mo ng isang napakalaking pulutong ng tao, no, na milyon-milyon na hindi super na organisado at nandun sila sa isang lugar, yung motivation nila, eh, 'no, dun ako believe, eh, sa mga taong yun ng EDSA na nandoon. Kasi wala silang masasabi mong pinaka-convenor o talagang, leader kumbaga na sasabi, "Oh, ito gagawin, ito isisigaw." Wala, hindi. Milyon-milyon yun, hindi mo yun makokontrol and yet they all acted according to their conscience. And yung prompting ng ano yun, eh, ng Espiritu Santo, eh. So, imaginin mo milyon-milyon yun at kung yun ikukumpara natin sa panahon natin and it's also our critique sa panahon natin, hindi ka na makakapag-gather ng sobrang laking tao ng walang pangako na kabayaran. Not necessarily pera, pero kung magsabi ka, "Punta kayo kasi libre ang lunch." So, they will go because there's free food. Pero ito walang may artista. Or, something that you will benefit from, 'no, pero ito wala. Actually mas dangerous pa nga, walang benefit dito. puwede kang mamatay kasi kung 'pag yun nga, if all hell breaks loose, wala na, 'di ba? And that's really the wonder of the EDSA. Hindi lang siya simpleng fairy tale at tama ka dun, hindi siya happily ever after na wala ng mga Marcos na, sila ang kontrabida. Not necessarily, it's a far more complex na kuwento at, hindi bida yung Aquino, hindi bida yung simbahan lang o may mabuting side o hindi siya gano'n. Rather it's a response 'no, na mula sa isang konsensya na personal nag-grow into a collective conscience na, "Teka, kailangan ako ng inang bayan sa oras na 'to." At yung isang taong yun, nagkataon iniisip din nung isang tao hanggang naging 1,000,000, 2,000,000, ilang milyon yung mga nandun sa EDSA.
And I would like to emphasize din pre, yung sinabi mo nga, the military calculations and everything about that. Kasi sometimes, another myth that we think about EDSA ay para siyang black and white, no? Na mayroon kang bida, no? Yung mga tao, yung mga Aquino, yung mga Liberal Party, meron kang mga kontrabida, no? Mga Marcos, mga militaries. Rem just look at that. The military, if they did not contain themselves, they did not control themselves, they could have just fired. Even Marcos himself, no? President Marcos Sr. himself, he could have just ordered na, sige, ano yun yan, open fire, pag-disperse yung mga yan. No? Just cold-blooded. In history, well, later on, we will see yung sa global impact, no? Yung mga nag-try gumaya sa EDSA. For example, yan, sa Tiananmen Square sa China, nung trinay nila to, it was cracked down, violently, no? So, the military could have done that, but let us also acknowledge their self-control, no? Their moral compass at that time. Na that's the easy way out, eh, but they did not do. They did not do it, no? They have realized na, yeah, these people are here. Hindi 'to makakaliwang grupo, itong mga 'to ay talagang peaceful, nagdarasal at yun nga, yung experience na may nakakita sa mahal na Birhen, no? And, well, even if EDSA was in that sense, successful because it restored democratic institutions, no? It restored the confidence din ng sambayanang Pilipino sa kanyang gobyerno at ng international, community rin sa Pilipinas, no? Let us not fool ourselves nga na parang nagka-EDSA lang, okey na ang lahat, na-solve na lahat ng problema ng Pilipinas. No, in fact, we can say na there are things na entrenched nung panahon ng martial law at hindi na cut off nung nung revolutionary government na tinatawag, no, nung after ng EDSA revolution. And sadly, some people of our age who did not hindi natin naman nasa buhay na experience yung EDSA, we believe na yun ay cause ng EDSA, no? Ng EDSA ang may nun, may pakana nun kung bakit meron tayong mga ganitong structural problems like inequality, no? Yung gap between the rich and the poor na napakalaki sa Pilipinas. Yung oligarchy, yung mga political dynasties, these were things na already entrenched. Even before the Second World War nagsisimula na. Mas lumalim ng lumalim after ng Second World War. At lalong
Yeah.
lumalim nga dahil sa communism and everything nung martial law. Pero ayun nga, the wrong thing I think na pinabayaan ng revolutionary government ay they did not cut it, and so it became more and more entrenched.
Totoo yan 'no. Pero yun nga, to be fair with the spirit of EDSA 'no, and to acknowledge its legacy and its global impact, hindi puwede kasing isisi natin sa EDSA yung oligarchy for example. Kasi panahon pa ng mga Kastila 'no, yung political dynasty, select Filipino families have been ruling at the expense of the lower class. May ano rin tayo, eh, may stratification tayo and we cannot deny it in our history. Pero what is unique 'no sa EDSA phenomenon is that this inspired 'no, the nation's cultures na puwede palang magkaroon ng isang movement na hindi violent, non-violent, na magpatawag ng peaceful reforms, hence the term people power. And I cannot overemphasize this, but my very reflection about this is if we can just only understand again as Filipinos how powerful we are when we work as one. Ang mahalaga Pilipino ka na may pagmamahal sa bayan 'no, and you have nawala doon yung regionalism kasi kahit saang region, sa mga urban city centers, they gather 'no. You have Davao, you have Cebu, you have ngayon wala na kasi divided na. May mga provinces na iba yung political leanings 'no, ta's iba yung grabe yung kapit ng mga political dynasties. Halos bawat probinsya, you name it, may specific na apelyido na naghahari diyan. And it's not a legacy of EDSA. The legacy of EDSA is to inspire a peaceful reform, you know, without the shedding of blood, without actually wanting a bloody revolution, no, which is actually a very communist mentality. It's very unique. It's a very unique phenomenon and attitude of the Filipinos. So sana makabalik, no? Hindi lang sa bokabularyo, but rather sa mentality natin.
Some global inspired revolutions ng EDSA para makita ninyo na hindi lang siya Pilipinas lang, no, na it is something to be proud of kasi maraming bansang kumopya, eh. Well, na-discuss ko na kanina yung failed na student uprising sa China noong 1989 and then the Tiananmen Square massacre, no. If you search for that, you will see that very famous picture of that man holding a plastic bag in front of a tanque de guerra, of a tank. No, very reminiscent kasi may picture din tayo niyan, eh. Remember yung nag-aabot ng rosaryo doon sa sundalo na nasa tanque de guerra, no? Well, sa China, it failed, no? But may mga naging victorious din ng mga revolutions. Yung Velvet Revolution na tinatawag sa Czechoslovakia noong 1989, they explicitly cited EDSA as an inspiration for their peaceful transition, no? And in fact, because of this 1989 Velvet Revolution sa Czechoslovakia, that is now Czech Republic and Slovakia, no? But by that time it was still one single country. Kapitbahay niyan ay yung East Germany, no? Germany dati ay hiwalay. Merong West na capitalistic and democratic, and then you have the Democratic People's Republic of Germany na communist. That Velvet Revolution sa Czechoslovakia, umakyat yan patungo ng Germany, and that was the cause of the fall of the Berlin Wall, no, nung nagdi-divide doon sa Berlin from East and West Germany. And of course, the reunification of Germany into one single federal republic, democratic republic, no, na sinanawi na nila yung communism. And saying on, after this, you have sa Eastern Europe naman, 1989 pa rin yung tinatawag na the Autumn of Nations, no? So similar non-violent popular uprisings ay nagsimula sa Poland and then sa mga iba pang bansa na nandoon sa Soviet bloc na tinatawag, no? Lithuania, Ukraine, no? Belarus, yung mga yan. And it actually led to the fall of communism, or at least Soviet communism ng USSR o ng Union of Soviet Socialist Republics na na-dissolve noong 1991. Pero unti-unti bumabagsak na sila noong 1989 inspired ng EDSA. You have in 1987 yung South Korean democracy movement, no? South Korea was also under a military rule, a dictatorship, since the war against North Korea, no? For almost the same time as the Marcos regime in the Philippines. So popular uprisings and mass protests ended the military rule in South Korea and established direct elections. Noong 1998, nagkaroon naman sa Indonesia naman yung tinatawag na reformasi, no? May mga protests na nag-cause ng resignation ni President Suharto, often referenced as a local people power event, no? By the 2000s, merong tinatawag na the color revolutions. Marami ito. Una halimbawa ay sa Serbia ng 2000 at sa Georgia noong 2003, no. They also followed the blueprint of a peaceful, large-scale, non-violent protests, no. Taiwan, Taiwan meron din silang democratic movement nung late 1980s, no. Kasi nga same, mga martial law rin sila nun, eh, ang Taiwan simula ng, giyera nila laban sa Communist China. Si, um Chiang Kai-shek, ano, yung dating presidente ng Republic of China, naging dictator siya ng Taiwan, pati yung anak niya na nagmana. So, nung 1980s nakita ng mga Taiwanese yung nangyari sa Pilipinas, they also copied it. So now they are fully democratic, no? South Africa, yung anti-apartheid movement, yung exclusion ng mga black Africans, no? It happened in the late 80s and early 90s, no? And it was emboldened, nakita rin nila yung, nangyari sa Pilipinas, 'no. So, the people power movement at marami pa, hindi lang yung mga yan. People power movement is not a localized event, one time, big time, hindi, it really inspired, eh. However, yeah, it also raises the questions. Can peaceful revolutions really sustain deep reforms? Or do they only change leaders and not the systems? Now, you see, revolutions should become should be understood as revolutions. It should be a one-time event, no? And then after that, kailangan na ulit kumbaga suspense dapat 'yon. And then after that, kailangan na ulit i-take on ng bayan yung reconstruction, no? So, I think ang question is not just about the revolution. Ano yung nangyari sa post-revolution, no? Kaya I think it's high time now in this part of this episode as we close this episode then, although this will still be a big segment, no? Let's go into a more philosophical, theological then na reflection, no? Dito sa EDSA, yung revolution, yung power, yung democracy, no? Kasi kung titingnan natin ang EDSA, hindi lang bilang isang historical event, kundi bilang isang philosophical event. It becomes a meditation power itself, eh. What is power? Where does it come from? Ano yung nagle-legitimize sa power, no? And when is revolution justified?
We can start with, of course, socio-political philosophy, power and legitimacy. For example, let's start with Max Weber. So, Weber famously defined the state, as an entity that claims a monopoly on the legitimate use of violence. Well, in the legal parlance, you call that police power, no? Pero take note of the term, no? Legitimate use of the former administration had that monopoly, no? Marcos regime through the military, no? The police, no? The state forces, the state security forces. And yun nga, meron ka pang emergency powers as a president, no? But legitimacy is not just force, it is also consent, no? As long as the people tolerated it, no? And you can still see it sa panahon natin lately na okay lang yan, okay lang ganyan, at least may nagagawa. Okay lang dynasty, at least kilala na natin. So kung kurakot man yan, at least kilala natin. Or okey lang naka-1 tayo, ang mahalaga naman, sikat or komportable na kasi tayo sa ganito and sa tingin ko yun yung ano, yun nung death 'no, yung demise ng the spirit of EDSA. So, before we move further, kasi baka makalimutan ko, it's also a diagnosis 'no, sa sakit nating mga Pilipino o mga tao dahil nga tayo'y addict sa telenovela. Hindi lang tayo naniniwala sa isang tao, but rather umaasa tayo sa isang phenomenon para lutasin ang lahat ng problema natin, 'no? At kapag in-apply natin siya as a collective, yun ang nangyayari tulad niyang for the longest time during the 70s and the 80s makakita ka ng mga pelikulang Pilipino na yung bida nakakuha ng isang ginintoang, ah, lampara and it solved all of his or her financial problems, for example. So gano'n din, parang gano'n na nagiging trato natin sa EDSA na, hindi nag-EDSA na, dapat wala ng political dynasty. Hindi nag-EDSA na, dapat wala ng oligarchy. No, no, no. Hindi gano'n 'yun. Minsan pang-jumpstart 'yun 'no, to really help us begin again. Pero the work is within ourselves 'no. So kung tayo halimbawa ngayon ang issue natin ay edukasyon, hindi natin hindi puwedeng maghintay tayo na, sige isa pang revolusyon ulit tapos asikasuhin natin ang edukasyon. It does not work that way 'no. Minsan we just have to wake up 'no, and understand na tayo ang responsable sa pag-iral ng kasaysayan ng bansa natin.
Yeah, actually, well, i-a-advance ko kasi ito para pupunta dapat 'to sa mas ano, religious na reflection, eh. Pero ang nakikita ko kasi ang EDSA parang ano 'yan, Filipino version ng Vatican II. Kasi lagi natin sinasabi lahat ng mga nangyaring masama sa simbahan after ng council sinisisi natin sa Vatican II. Actually hindi, eh. Ang ganda ng nangyari ng council, eh. Dapat ang sisihin natin yung post-conciliar na ano, na implementation ng council na natupad ba talaga. Anyways, that's just pero going back to the yeah, 'di ba? O na-hijack, 'di natin alam. Pero, let's go back nga dun sa ating philosophical ano, reflections. One of my favorite kulasisi in history, philosophical kabit. Kasi kabit ni ano 'to, ni Martin Heidegger 'no, si Hannah Arendt 'no. Siya ay ano, she makes a very helpful na distinction 'no. Power power arises from people acting together. Yun ang pinagkaiba. On the other hand, violence, what is violence? Violence is merely instrumental. No? It's an instrument of the exercise of that power, but that power arises from that acting together of the people. No? So EDSA in that way is often cited as an Arendtian moment, no? Where power emerged not actually from coercion. Walang pumilit sa mga tao magpunta doon, but from collective action and solidarity.
But also, Arendt warns that revolutions can collapse into mere regime change 'no, na sa revolution, kasi kapag hindi tayo careful at hindi tayo prudent, hindi tayo nagdi-discern, iikot lang siya, literal 'no, na parang kung ito ay hindi nagru-rule, ito ang nagru-rule, iikot lang. Same ang sistema, nagpalit ka lang ng tao, nagpalit ka lang ng players, pero the system never changes. That's why, ah, we need to have structural transformation. Tanong dun na ipo-post namin sa inyo, nakamit ba yon ng EDSA sa tingin niyo, sa palagay ninyo? Kasi EDSA raises this question painfully, nabago ba natin ang sistema o nagpalit lang tayo ng players, 'no? Yung people power ba, binalik ba ang power sa people o nag-place lang tayo ng bagong people in power?
Yeah, parang yung ano 'no, parang yung tawag dito, yung meme, ito 'tong meme na 'to, yung, "You have freed us." I wouldn't say freed, more like under new management, 'di ba? Parang yun yung ano, yun yung question, eh. Is it really Yung change ba ay nagpalit lang ng elites yung turno? Kasi marami niyan, maraming revolution sa ganyan sa history, Bolshevik revolutions. Tinanggal nila yung Tsar tsaka yung mga, aristocrats. Sinong pumalit? Yung Bolsheviks, yung ano, Politburo ng ano, Soviet Socialist Republics, 'di ba? So, may mga gano'ng ano, ah, and para sa usapan naman ng revolution, when is it, justified? Kay John Locke 'no, John Locke, one of the greatest, political philosophers. Para sa kanya nag-e-exist ang gobyerno dahil dun sa tinatawag na social contract. Ang natural state ng mundo, walang gobyerno 'no, kada kada tao, bahala siya sa buhay niya. Every individual is free and equal 'no. However, dahil walang nagga-guarantee nung iyong mga rights at laging mayroong, maglalaban ng mga rights 'no, between individuals, kailangan mo ng impartial judge. Kaya papasok ngayon yung gobyerno, and government is there. It's legitimate because it derives solely from the consent of the people, no? And ang purpose niya is to protect the natural rights of life, liberty, and property, no? Serving as a trustee of the people's will. Kumbaga yung tao, okay, magi-give up ko ng yung kaunti kong mga rights ha, pero ikaw, gobyerno, kailangan mong i-ensure itong rights ko ng, life, liberty, and property, no? Now, when revolution becomes justifiable according to John Locke, no? It is now justified when rulers violate the social contract. Ibig sabihin, 'pag hindi na nila pinoprotect yung life, liberty, at property mo, 'di ba? In that sense, the Marcos regime or the Marcos Senior regime with martial law and human rights abuses, eh, ano na, it would really clearly qualify as tyrannical and not fulfilling its part of the social contract in Lockean terms.
Yan, naparinig tuloy ako ng modern philosophy ko. Yeah. Another important political philosopher o political figure 'no, sa classical era, si Jean-Jacques Rousseau 'no. On the other hand naman, sinasabi naman niya, i popular sovereignty, the general will of the people. EDSA was a moment when the Filipino people asserted that sovereignty belongs to them, Filipino people. And mas dramatic, mas maganda, mas okey 'no. Kasi the mas dramatic, mas embodied, mas dama mo, mas may buy-in ka, eh. Kasi yung mga tao nga hindi mo siya hindi mo siya mapu-push lang, ng walang motivation. Kaya ngayon ang mirakulous sa EDSA kasi kung sabihin lang natin na dahil isang kardinal lang ang nagsabi, not necessarily. Hindi, hindi lang hindi mo mako-quantify o mako-qualify kung ano yung motivation ng multitude na nag-gather. Some of them might be afraid of hell, afraid of disobedience to the primate, no? But I think it's a very, very, very minimal population na dun sa demographics na yun. Some are just really patriotic and napukaw, 'di ba? And before we move further 'no, baka makalimutan ko na naman. Yun yung isang theory 'no, yung political theory na sa isang bansa 'no, sa isang bayan, almost 95% diyan ay passive. At ang mga actors diyan ay yung mga nandun sa konting percent. Ang labanan dito, sino yung makakapagpukaw sa natutulog na 95%. Kasi parang kung titingnan mo, alisin natin yung religious component, yung spiritual aspect ng EDSA. It's just basically about tapping the passive majority. Kasi most of them, okay lang sa kanila yung pamamalakad, eh. Okay lang, may gano'n na tayong sorry, pero just to look at it in another way, no? May gano'n naman na tayong indifference as Filipinos even during the Spanish times, even right now, even during the EDSA time na kung hindi ka apektado, kung hindi mo kung wala kang kamag-anak na desaparecidos, kung ikaw ay nakakapag-aral naman, maayos ka tulad nga kay John Locke, 'di ba? Yung life, liberty, and property hindi naman nasasagasaan yun. Wala ka namang pake, 'di ba? Pero what's amazing or miraculous nga about EDSA is this vast majority na passive, na okey lang 'yan, walang kaso 'yan, natap siya, eh. Hindi ng specific na party, hindi ng Dilaw lang, eh, hindi ng Aquino faction whatsoever, eh. But rather from it began with the church, 'no? Then eventually they adopted Cory na, sige Cory tayo. Hindi lang dahil byuda siya but rather si yung ino-offer ng grupo niya, it seems to be a better alternative than what we are having right now. And that's ano, that's somehow kailangan nating pagnilayan ulit, 'no? Kasi ngayon, hindi na natin alam kung sino ang majority. Some claim na nasa kanila yung majority, while others say na hindi, natutulog pa ang majority. I would like to believe na tulog pa ang talagang majority. Na yung mga maiingay ngayon, these are just chunks, 'no, pero hindi sila yung buong, collective.
Well, that is true actually, pre. Kasi yun na naman talaga lagi, yung mga pinakamaingay sa social media man yan, kahit sa mga ano diyan, sari-sari store lang na habang nagiinuman, ganyan. Mga pinakamaingay, yan yung mga pinaka-loyal sa isang political party, sa isang ideology, no? Pero the vast majority of people, hindi naman sa do not care, pero hindi sila vocal, no? Kaya yun ang ano, yun ang challenge sa kahit na anumang partido. You have to tap into that, no? Eh, problema mo, the political parties sa Pilipinas, eh, tendency ay mag-ano, consolidate sa base na nila, 'di ba? So ikaw ay makakaliwa, o di magsalo kang mag-ano, full on na puro mga progressive ideals and ano, platforms. Ikaw ay makaganito, o mas lalo kang mag full on na pang-elite ka lang tsaka pang matalino ka lang, tawaging bobo yung mga tao. So, hindi mo nata-tap ngayon yung majority na yun, 'no. Now, going back to the idea of is revolution justified? Of course, we have the ang pinag-uusapan natin dito is, a peaceful revolution like EDSA, 'no. But also there are, other forms of revolutions na mas violent na kinakampanya ng mga communists. Andiyan nga sila Karl Marx, 'no, sabi nila violence is justified, basta baguhin lang yung sistema, ganyan, 'no. And then because of that, there are thinkers like Edmund Burke, 'no, na they would warn against revolutions, even the justified ones. Because revolutions can unleash unintended consequences kasi magkakaroon ng tinatawag vacuum of power, eh, 'no. So, kadalasan 'pag may vacuum of power, it chaos will ensue, 'no. So, order matters and tradition matters, 'no. EDSA's relatively peaceful transition is often seen as a counter-example actually to these violent revolutions, so like yung, French Revolution, 'no, ang daming pinatay. Just look at that French Revolution, violent 'to, ito pinagkaiba niya sa EDSA. They toppled the monarch, they beheaded the king and the queen. They killed everyone. What ensued was not actually peace and prosperity to all people. What ensued after is a reign of terror, 'no, tinatawag na after ng fall ng monarchy ng France. May isang lugar, 'no, na tinatawag na, dahil yung lugar na yun ay nanatili sila na ayaw nilang pumirma kumbaga doon ng kanilang, loyalty sa republic at ikondena ang simbahan. They were killed. Everyone in that place were killed by the new republican government. So, chaos ensued. Kailan lang karoon ng order? Nung dumating si Napoleon and he crowned himself emperor. Pero that's history of France, no? And of course, we have discussed din yung Russian Revolution, ng mga Bolsheviks. No? It was also bloody. Many people died. So, the EDSA revolution, as a peaceful revolution, is actually a counterexample doon. However, its long-term outcomes still remain debated and still in debate until now, no? You have people saying na hindi, it was a wrong move in the history of the Philippines. Some people are saying na hindi, it did not meet yung outcomes, yung change na hinihingi talaga nung fathers and mothers of EDSA, which I would argue against kasi I don't think na mayroong grand scheme yung mga pumunta sa EDSA ng change ba ng sistema ng Pilipinas. Hindi, nandun sila kasi tinawag sila ng Cardinal Sin para walang dumanak na dugo. And kung yun lang ang pag-uusapan natin, nagtungumpay sila doon. Extra lang yung nagkapalitan ng gobyerno. No? Kaya nga again, the change, the systematic change, supposedly, that was the job of the post-EDSA government, the post-EDSA generation. Now, the question should be, hindi yung na-achieve ba ng EDSA yung change ng system? Rather, na-achieve ba ng post-EDSA generation yung pinagkatiwala sa kanyang change ng EDSA? No? Again, going back dun sa parallelism, parang Vatican II, na-achieve ba ng concilium ng mga commissions after ng Vatican II yung pinagkatiwala sa kanila ng Council Fathers? Bakit magulo? So, sino sisisihin natin? Yung Council Fathers ba? O yung mga nag-implement, di ba? The same is to EDSA.
Yeah. Now let's go to theological, spiritual reflections on power, on our prophetic call, and people. Ating pagiging tao. From a Christian theological perspective, no? EDSA, tulad ng sinasabi natin kanina pa, hindi mahirap na i-frame siya as a miracle eh. Dahil sa napakaraming factors na kung consider mo lang ay yung human aspect, isang pagkakamali lang na talagang hindi iyon ang magiging outcome. Far from what we can imagine. Yun yung sinasabi mo nga, diba? Parang hindi siya yung inaasahan mong mangyayari. No. But let's go deeper. No? Theology asks us these questions. What is a just power? Ano yung makatarungang kapangyarihan? And what is prophetic resistance? No? We have heard so many accounts of priests, no, religious, no, even lay people who just bore witness to the truth, and they risk their lives, no? They risk their safety, their security, and their family for the truth, no? For speaking for the truth, no? And yet some of them lost their lives. So, ano ba dyan? Let's start with scriptures, no? Sa Bible. Ano ba sinasabi tungkol sa mga bagay na to?
In the biblical tradition, yung tinawag mo kanina na prophetic resistance, no? Prophets, remember, and this is very important because in our baptism we share in the three offices of Christ, diba? Prophet, King, Priest. So, kailangan din natin sundin to, no? So, sa Biblia, yung mga propeta, they are not afraid to confront unjust kings. When kings were committing crimes, were committing sins, they tell it in their faces, no? For example, si Prophet Nathan, if you remember, he confronted David. Diba? You remember yung ginawa ni David? Na tawag dito, na nandun siya sa palasyo niya habang nagigera yung mga sundalo niya. So namamasyal lang siya doon, nakakita siya ng babaeng naliligo. Tapos sinipingan niya. Tapos yung pala, asawa pala yun ng isa sa mga sundalo niya. Anong ginawa niya para hindi siya mabuking? Ginawa niya ay nutusin niya yung general niya na ilagay mo dun sa unahan para mamatay. Para pag namatay, pwede ko nang kunin yung asawa niya. No? So legal na, kumbaga. Anong sabi sa kanya ni Nathan? Sabi sa kanya, alam mo, mayroong isang tao na napakarami niyang tupa, no? Tapos, isang araw, nakita niya yung kapitbahay niya. Meron lang iisa lang na tupa at alagang-alaga niya yun, mahal na mahal niya yun. Anong ginawa niya? Kinuha niya yung tupa na yun kasi may bisita siya, tapos pinatay niya, niluto niya. Tapos nagalit si David, napakasama naman ng tao na yan. And then, the prophet Nathan said, ikaw yun. Yun yung ginawa mo. At yan, dahil dyan paparusahan ka ng Diyos. Harap-harapan yun. Si Elijah, no? He also confronted the king, Ahab. No? Sabi niya, ikaw sumasabak sa mga Diyos-Diyos, nihahayaan mo yung yung asawa mo na magpasok dito ng mga Diyos-Diyos dito sa bayan. And then of course, you have, for example, theology na hindi na biblical, yung na-discuss natin dati, yung liberation theology na tinatawag, no? It speaks of a preferential option for the poor, no? And yung moral duty to resist yung tinatawag na structural sin. Ano structural sin? Hindi ito yung personal sin na kasalanan ko. Ang kasalanan laging personal. Structural sin is when a structure itself becomes sinful, or rather becomes corrupt to the point na pag pumunta ka doon, pumasok ka doon sa sistema na either kakainin ka ng sistema o isusuka mo yung sistema. So, kaya minsan hanap ka ng politiko na santo. Mahirap, di ba? Kasi nga, kahit pumasok ka ng santo, doon kakainin ka ng sistema. Kung hindi, iiwanan mo yun kasi mandidiri ka sa nangyayari, kumbaga, no? So, may ganong tradition.
Speaking of yan, yung mga santo or tarantadong politiko, another thing that our theology, no, warns us against is yung messianic politics, na the temptation to over exalt, no, a person or an event, no. Tapos problema doon mo binibigay yung burden na parang this person or this event will save us. Katulad ng discussion ko kanina, EDSA is just a phenomenon. Can be a miracle, sure, pero it's just a phenomenon. Hindi siya magic beans, hindi siya magic capsule na iti-take ng lahat ng Pilipino at tapos na lahat ng problema niya. No. Cory Aquino may be a good president to some, a bad president to many. I don't know. Pero Cory Aquino is just Cory Aquino. And for a period of time, she was just President Cory Aquino. Hindi siya savior ng Philippines, no? Just like Rodrigo Duterte or Gloria Macapagal-Arroyo or Benigno Aquino III, no? They are just people. So, EDSA did not usher us, no, in the kingdom of God. It was human, no? It's ambiguous, no? It's uncertain, yet it is grace-filled, no? And what's more important to highlight here, it is, no, nabasa ko rin ito, no? It is an unfinished event. Kasi kung ano ba ang intention ng EDSA People Power Revolution, it's an incomplete event. Kaya nga, it's just unfair. Some political or philosophical commentaries na sasabi na EDSA has failed. EDSA is not yet finished. No? As long as the 1987 Constitution remains as the Constitution of the country, EDSA is still an unfinished business. No? Sinasabi niya doon maghatid ng reformang peaceful. So hangga't wala pang reforma, ibig sabihin hindi pa tapos ang trabaho ng EDSA, no? Sa ganong perspektibo. Pero ang wina-warn nga sa atin, wag nating isipin na ang isang phenomenon o isang tao ang magiging solusyon. Actually, dahil sa ganong kaisipan kaya nagkakaleche-leche ang bansa natin. 2016 sinabi natin yan sa sarili natin, okay, ito na lang taong ito kasi matatapos ang problema sa droga at kriminalidad. 9 years later, 6 years later, 5 years later, wala naman. It's the same problem. Why? Because binibigyan natin sa isang tao yung problemang hindi dapat pang isang tao, pero pang isang bansa, no? na tayo dapat nagtutulong-tulong, magulang tulungan ng anak, teachers tulungan ng mga estudyante, at the same time students tulungan ng mga teachers, 'no? Mga gano'n, gobyerno lokal tulungan ng national, national tulungan ng lokal. Hindi siya trabaho ng isang tao, ng isang pangulo o isang senador, 'no? 'Yun, ah, it's very important that we understand, 'no, na every kind of human activity, every human event is just as uncertain, complex, hindi siya black and white, 'no, ambiguous most of the time. For some, EDSA is a very horrible event. Pero for many or others or some also, it's a miraculous event. But importante, as long as we understand that it was rooted in prayer, it was a grace-filled event, and it still has its work to do.
And Saint Augustine reminds us, no, that earthly cities, republics as we will call them now, no, are always imperfect. Kasi nga earthly sila eh. No, hindi sila yung city of God na tinatawag ni Saint Augustine, no? O tatawagin ng iba na utopia. No? So we have to recognize, and even democracy itself is not even the best form of government. No? Would even say na it's in the mid category. No? So democracies are fragile. They are sinful. And so they are always in need of conversion, of renewal.
Now we go to the reflection on democracy as something like a moral task. Democracy is not just institutions. It's a system. It's a moral culture. So, this is the problem, 'no, na tutukan niya, samahan niyo kami dito. For a democracy to really work, 'no, and to really become a healthy democracy, it requires number 1, truth. So, kung tayo ay lunod na sa fake news o namamanipula lang na mabilis ang truth, depende sa kung sino ang may hawak ng pera, o yung tatlong G, gold, guns, and goons, 'di ba? Kung sino may 3 Gs, 'no, at siya kaya niyang mag-control ng truth, 'no, unhealthy democracy, problematic 'yan, 'no. So, you have truth, number 1. Number 2 is memory. Same as with truth, kapagka ang memory natin ay ina-alter na at sinisira na yung ating memory, like memory of EDSA or our memory of the Philippine Revolution, 'no, and even right now, hindi gano'n katagal yung ating laban, 'no, 2016 lang tayo nanalo sa arbitral award, 'no, regarding the West Philippine Sea, 'no. And yet some of, big people right now in the society are telling us, "No, no, walang West Philippine Sea, hindi yan totoo." You know kung sino yung mga taong yan, 'no, pero yan, memory, 'no, 2 is memory. Number 3, participation. Kapag ang participation natin ay contrived kasi bayad or pinipigilan. And number 4, pinakaimportante sa lahat ay virtue. Kapag wala na tayong virtue, kapag ang virtues natin ay corrupted na. Dati klaro sa atin na virtue ang honesty, ang accountability, dati ang virtue natin ay, care for our elderly, something like that, honest work, 'di ba? Ngayon, yung mga promotion na tayo ng sugal, mga 'di ba, mga instant money whatsoever. If you can be critical at this, 'no, and you try to reflect on it, 'no, forgetting history or mythologizing like EDSA, it can undermine the very thing that makes us like this, 'no. And hindi naman siya sa fear-mongering, pero nakakatakot dito na fact, mga kaibigan, ay if we are in an authoritarian rule, especially kung communist tayo, socialist tayo, wala tayong ganitong klase ng freedom. At kung talagang makain din naman tayo ng mga authoritarian regimes na nasa right din halos, hindi rin gano'n ka-ano yung freedom natin, ka-authentic. So, walang perfect na nasa gitna, 'no, pero yung 4 na elementong 'yan, 'no, truth, memory, participation, and virtue. As long as these are present, mga pillars ito na masu-sustain yung ating democracy. And it is our moral task to always revisit and check ourselves above all, 'no? Hindi yung kapwa natin Pilipino, tayo. Are we truthful? Kasi even if others are not truthful, but I'm truthful, democracy will still live. Democracy can thrive, 'no? Am I participating enough? Wala namang pake kasi hindi naman ako apektado. May virtue pa rin ba ako? May integrity pa rin ba ako, 'di ba? And ang memory ko ba ay nacha-challenge from time to time? Do I still remember it right? O naa-alter na? It's okay from time to time hindi natin mapipigilan na talagang minsan nate-threaten na ma-alter yung memory natin. Pero the very important thing is yung values na connected doon at least intact pa din. Okay. From time to time mare-realize mo na, oo, magaling na tao si Rizal, siya ay huwarang bayani, pero later on mare-realize mong babaero siya, pero it does not reduce him being our national hero. Yung mga gano'ng bagay. So it's our moral task, 'no, to keep to ourselves, 'no, yung commitment, 'no, task natin 'yon, na ang democracy to remain alive sa atin magsisimula. Hindi natin puwedeng isisi lagi o ituro sa ibang tao.
Yeah, and because of that, EDSA then is both a historical, a political event, and also a moral parable, no? Na it showed us na people can and must resist tyranny. No, that's a moral duty to resist tyranny. Prophetic duty yan eh. No? But at the same time, we have to remember that freedom is not self-sustaining. Hindi porket nagkaroon na ng EDSA people power, okay na, safe na, malaya na tayo palagi, 'di ba? Kung atakihin yang 4 na yan at yung sinabi ni Russell, truth, memory, participation, virtue, may isa lang diyan. Ano yan eh, wheels yan eh, gulong yan, parang kotse ang republika eh. Yan yung mga gulong. May isa lang diyan ma-flat, hindi uusad yung republika. Ma-flat yung 2 diyan, hindi na talaga gagalaw. Ma-flat yung 3, yung 4, wala ng republika. 'Di ba? Kasi ang kotse na hindi gumagalaw, eh, hindi siya kotse. Wala na siyang sense, wala na yung essence niya, eh, to transport people, eh. Gano'n din ang republika, mawala yang 4 na yan, wala na, no? So, let's be careful because freedom is not self-sustaining na once you gain freedom ay forever ka ng malaya, no? It demands. It demands constant renewal.
So in that sense, the EDSA people power is still an unfinished business. It's not a finished chapter. It is an ongoing question posed to every generation. That's what's just beautiful about EDSA. We have become EDSA babies ourselves. We have become an EDSA generation. From our parents, or perhaps our grandparents, then our parents, tas tayo, tas yung next naman na generation sa atin. Oh, it's a manifestation of our belief in democracy, although democracy is not always perfect, no? Pero we have this kind of freedom because of democracy. And so, let's wrap up with all of this. Mahaba-haba itong kwentuhan 'to. Hopefully, medyo nakatulong sa reflection natin as Filipinos, no? Bakit mahalaga pa rin ang EDSA? Especially upon realizing na unfinished business pa ito.
Or rather, we can just say, na hindi lang siya dapat isang point lang sa history. What we are pointing here is that as post-EDSA generation tayo, kailangan mayroon pa rin yung diwa ng EDSA na tinatawag, no? And in fact, EDSA itself, no? It's not just a single point in Philippine history. It's actually a case study. A case study in how authoritarian regimes fall. No? And authoritarian regimes is not a thing of historical books. it still exists and even resurfaces now and again, no? And EDSA shows us how they fall, how people mobilize. And most importantly, I think, the reality that democracies are fragile. No? How fragile democracies can be. Yan ang pinapakita sa atin ng EDSA.
That's correct, no? And remembering EDSA is not about nostalgia. Why? Kasi kung nostalgia ito, wala tayong role dito. Kasi hindi naman tayo pinanganak sa EDSA. So it's not nostalgia, but rather it qualifies as something worthy of a more objective reality. Kasi yung nostalgia nga lang, yung kahuli-huli ang taong naka-witness ng EDSA kapag namatay siya, wala na. Pero hindi lang yung promises ng EDSA, yung values ng EDSA, and yung mismo message ng EDSA na meron tayong commitment to non-violence and it is possible to promote a state na merong ganong klase ng mentality. Just try to, from time to time, skim through the 1987 Constitution and you will see how different we are from other countries, especially with our doctrines on the importance of human life, the value of life, the value of due process of law. Grabe, hallmark of democracy. So, if you remember EDSA, kahit hindi ka pa pinanganak nung time na yon, it's not because you're sharing nostalgic feelings of those who shared. Meron kang meron silang real experience nun or dahil lang baka sabihin nila, nag-e-EDSA ka kasi liberal party ka o kwan ka, makaakit ka. No. It's about historical honesty. Just as we understood for 333 years we have been under Spanish rule. In 1898, our heroes led the revolution. Before that, nagkaroon din ng mga revolts. Just like that, no? We entered the Second World War. We participated in it, no? Reluctantly. We lost so much. We tried to rebuild ourselves, no? And still, now, after a period of martial rule, we have EDSA. It's all about historical honesty, friends, and recognizing both its triumphs and its limits, no? Yung mga kakulangan, yung mga yun nga, quote unquote failings ng EDSA. It's honesty. No? It's very important to keep democracy alive.
And siguro, let us close with this, no? Kung merong tayong isang bagay na natutunan sa EDSA, no? Siguro ito yun. That history is not made by the important people alone. Yung mga heroes, yung mga villains, no? Hindi siya parang nobela, no? Na yun lang mga napangalanan ang gumagawa ng kasaysayan. Hindi. Actually, EDSA itself is a testament that history is made by ordinary people in extraordinary moments. Kaya hindi siya dapat, wag natin sana hayaan na ma-hijack siya yung narrative niya, no? Nang kahit na sino mang partido, sino mang tao yan, no? Na amin lang to, kulay lang namin yun dito. Hindi, amin yan, project namin yan. O kaya hindi, ayan ay political attack against our family. No, wag natin hayaan. Kasi it's a moment in history na it was the ordinary people, the nameless people. Kasi wala namang nagtala ng lahat ng pumunta ng EDSA. The nameless people there who went there, ordinary people. And, they did an extraordinary thing. That is why we still commemorate. Even today, some years after. Remember, that's the 80s. Ngayon 2026 na. We still commemorate EDSA because of these ordinary people.
Ayun. Napakaganda ng usapan natin. Sana nakatulong ito sa inyong pagninilay ngayong EDSA Day. And nasa loob na rin tayo ng Kwaresma, so from time to time, not only as Catholics, no, but rather we can somehow revisit our values as Filipinos. Kung nagustuhan nyo to o kaya may narinig kayo na kwentong EDSA, o kung meron kayong mga comments or violent reactions, so baka hindi kayo naniniwala sa ilang bahagi ng mga sinabi namin, feel free to tell us, no? You can always reach us sa aming website, tamangusapanpod.com. We have our email, tamangusapanpodcast@gmail.com. And sama-sama ulit tayo, no? Muli po, ito si Russell.
Ito naman po si Lennon,
Ito ang Tamang Usapan.
usapang may tama.